Hi everyone, and welcome to Studio Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Today, I wanted to talk about two of my favorite franchises, or one, I guess technically one is TBA. My voice might sound a little graspy today, so I'm going to go ahead and apologize to that in the intro. But anyway, I'm going to be talking about the upcoming film, The Batman, and I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite animes, The Rising of the Shield Hero, because it won a couple of categories which surprised me because particularly the American anime media don't like the show. Fans love it, but again, these kind of so-called nerd outlets, they don't. I'm going to talk more about that. So if you're listening on YouTube, be sure to like this video, subscribe, also ring that little bell because YouTube does this weird thing where they curate your subscription feed, and so you don't see things in chronological order like you used to. If you're on Facebook, like this page and also like the video, share it out to all your friends. Once again, sit back, relax, and welcome to Studio Jake. So, The Batman. Now, what is The Batman? The Batman is the upcoming film directed by Matt Reeves and starring Robert Pattinson as the Dark Knight, as Bruce Wayne himself. And there's a lot of rumors circling this movie, but there was some new information that has come out that I wanted to talk about today. So, for a long time, there has been speculation that maybe the movie wasn't originally simply called The Batman. That was more, though, when Ben Affleck was still attached to the project. Thank goodness he left. I know there's a lot of excuse making going around for why he left the franchise, besides the fact that he was a terrible Batman. But there are other personal reasons, according to him. Now, Matt Reeves announced on Twitter that on January 27th, 2020, they had began filming The Batman. So, um, I have a hopeful optimism for this movie, which I'll get into more later. So, what is this? What was the working title? So, an unauthorized photo, according to Bounding into Comics. By the way, I love their website. They are a great nerd outlet that avoid the fan bashing that is so prevalent on other sources, so I really highly recommend them, boundingintocomics.com. They posted an alleged unauthorized photo of Robert Pattinson's chair. That's, you know how they have those movie sets have these chairs, and they'll have one for the director, one for the actors when their scenes aren't being screened, and they can sit and relax. So instead of saying on Robert Pattinson's chair, instead of saying the Batman, it says Vengeance. It doesn't say Batman Vengeance, it doesn't say the Batman Vengeance, or anything like that, just Vengeance. So this has led many people to speculate that perhaps this was the working title. Supposedly, the Redditor that they're talking about on Bounding to Comics, he also said some other things about the plot. The leaker who goes by the name Camera Overtime, again according to Bounding into Comics. Sorry, my throat is just acting up so crazy today. He claims to have seen Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon and Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. He also claims to have seen a scene being filmed of the Riddler crashing a funeral with a car covered in Riddler markings, and of course Riddler is being played by Paul Dano. Now, I'm going to go into a couple other things that the spoilers said. He said that there's a funeral. The funeral scene is apparently for the mayor of Gotham. Bruce and Gordon are there. Suddenly a car comes ramming through the entrance, spray painted in question marks and DOA among other things. So obviously a Riddler attack, man crashes out of windshield with bomb, tied around DOA stands for detonate on arrival. So not much else. Um, he said there's been some controversy over whether Jim Gordon is going to have a mustache, and according to the leaker, he said he has seen Gordon with the mustache. So here's my thing with this series is I feel like once again Warner Brothers is kind of out of touch with the fans based on these castings. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. Zoe Kravitz is a fine actress, but I don't think she's Catwoman material, and also she doesn't really resemble Selina Kyle from the comic books. I just don't think she does. She doesn't look like. And same with Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. Why would you cast Jeffrey Wright as Gordon? I mean, Jeffrey Wright is a very talented actor, but there are other more talented actors who could have performed the role. And also, it seems like Warner Brothers and Matt Reeves, who's been kind of behind the casting, it seems like they're really trying to diversify quote quote Batman, but that's not necessary. Batman was his cast of characters in the comic books was diverse way prior to all of this SJW nonsense that they're trying to force onto people. So for instance, why not, if they wanted to have a black commissioner for Gotham City, why not cast someone to play Commissioner Aiken? He was a commissioner of Gotham, have him, and then, if you don't want him to be the commissioner because you're like, oh, we want to have Gordon, well, in the comic books, he's also been the mayor. They could have given him a different role. They could have made him a city councilor. They could have done anything like that. It doesn't make sense. And I don't understand this need to force diversity when none is necessary. It's very foolish. The Batman is one of the most, or at least his storylines have been some of the most diverse comic books series of all time, even before all this petty SJW politically correct squabbling. It doesn't need it. It never needed it. And my concern about this movie is they're doing this force diversity cast when it's just to score points with a bunch of people who won't go see the movie. He'll just write bad reviews about it anyway because you can't please them. They'll say, well, why didn't you make Gordon, not have an arm? Why didn't you make Riddler transgender? It's gonna all be these ridiculous arguments. And Warner Brothers has really lost touch with their fan base, and I say that in every sense of the word. You could tell this going back to Man of Steel, how they wrote Superman as kind of this angsty teen who doesn't really grow, how they made Batman this dark, angsty character and machine gunning bad guys down. That's not Batman. Batman has a code. So I don't understand why they're doing this. It seems, and one of the most bizarre castings is Colin Farrell as the Penguin. Josh Gad wanted the role. Why didn't they give it to Josh Gad, who looks more like the Penguin? I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to emulate the Telltale Batman video game series. So Telltale, they produce video games, and they're more like storybooks. So instead of like you playing or like in Spider-Man where you have an attack button or a swing button or a block button, in the Telltale series, it's more like you get to choose Batman's interaction. So in the second game, you actually get to decide whether the Joker turns evil or stays good, which I always thought was kind of dumb because when he turns evil, you don't fight Joker as Batman, you fight him in Bruce Wayne in the climax of the film. That was kind of dumb. But in that series, the Penguin, he's not like the short, fat, sort of looking guy who physically resembles a penguin. The reason he's called the Penguin is Oswald Cobblepot. He is really he's really a criminal, and he wears like one of those old century, what were they called? They were like these plague masks, and that's where he got the nickname the Penguin, because he was also in a tux. but he was like, instead of being short and stubby, he was this very slim, trim, handsome person. So that's my take on it. You can agree or disagree with me. I don't really care. I personally just don't want to see Batman caught up in the same SJW stuff that is infiltrating movies and is infiltrating the Marvel comics. I still think they should have cast people who resembled how the illustrators draw them, and hopefully this Batman film will just be a one-off, and if Warner Brothers decides to continue forward with the DCEU, they'll cast people who are more connected to the comic books in that way and not worry about what some people on Twitter or IGN or CBR or comicbooks.com are going to worry about. Next up, we have the Anime Awards hosted by Crunchyroll. And I don't usually talk about award shows because I think they're stupid, but one award that really surprised me, I thought was not going to get any recognition, was the Rising of the Shield Hero. Now, the Rising of the Shield Hero should have won in most categories. I'm not saying all of them, but it should have won larger than it did, but they didn't because, again, dumb, politically correct SJW crap weasels are getting all involved in even anime, and I think that's so silly. You can kind of see in Japan they're pushing back against this. They're pushing back against it because anime has always been a diverse art form. It always has. If you watch any of the anime series, even before politically correct stuff, they were even kind of more liberal than any other art form or television, but not in a way that it's politically correct or that forces on you. They do it based on whether the story is good or not. However, there has been one show, which is The Rising of the Shield Hero. It's definitely earned the ire of these SJWs who write for Anime News Network and IGN and CBR and comicbooks.com. So basically, The Rising of the Shield Hero is about this main character. His name is Naofumi, and he lives in our world, and he likes to read light novels. Now, in Japan, light novels are basically the equivalent of what we would call novellas, and they tend to be more young adult, but they're aimed at a larger audience. So the characters tend to be younger, but Japan, they love to read about younger characters. They don't feel like they have to have, every character has to be 30 and has everything together. They like to read how people grow, which is why manga is so successful in Japan. And also, I think, is becoming more successful in America. So he opens up a book. I want to say the name of the book is The Rising of the Shield Hero, and he sees like a couple of characters, but then he turns to one page and it's completely blank. And all of a sudden, a portal opens beneath him and it gets pulled into this world, the world of the land of Melremark. And basically, him and three other guys, they are all there, and they each have a weapon. So one guy has a spear, one guy has a sword, one guy has a bow, and Naofumi has the shield, which is a defensive weapon, and or not even a weapon. All they kind of make fun of him. So he gets framed for a crime he didn't commit and becomes sort of like this traitor. So he gets, because of his framing, and now since there's no really evidence of it, he is allowed to go and continue. He gets falsely accused by the princess of the country, by the king's own daughter. She accuses him of sexual misconduct and in drinking. Now, a big thing about Naofumi is he doesn't drink or do drugs because his brother had to go through rehab, and so he doesn't want to repeat the mistakes of his brother. That's something they established kind of early on. So she claims he was drunk and tried to attack her, basically. So I have to be careful what I say because YouTube censors, but you get the idea. And as a result of this, he gets a lot of anger and bitterness and cynicism inside of him, and he realizes the only way to escape this land is to fight off what are called these waves, and these waves pour down monsters on the land. So he has to do this, defeat them all back, and then he'll be allowed to go home, basically. So, but he can't do this with his shield alone, so he actually buys a slave, and this is Raphtalia. Now, at first he does kind of mistreat her, but then he sees another, because she's what they call in that world a demi-human, so she has animal features. She has raccoon ears and a raccoon tail, and he sees another human mistreating their demi-humans, and so then he feels bad. Then he's upset. He realizes he shouldn't mistreat her because other people do. So then he starts treating her good. He cuts her hair. She's kind of sickly, so she gets medicine, and then he trains her how to fight. And he tells her, "You're going to be my sword." And the SJWs about lost their crap over the show. It not only is it depicting a guy who's falsely accused, because women never lie according to the SJWs. They don't lie about being attacked or have a crime committed against them, and so that was strike one. And then one of the things about the show is it has a king, so it looks like a patriarchy. Now, spoiler alert, you do find out that the queen, there's actually a queen, and the husband she's the main throne. She's the main person on the throne, but she's away. And so this king kind of made some bad decisions on her behalf while she was gone. So then, of course, he buys a slave. And in this world, in Melremark, slavery is illegal. And so he earns the ire of the other of the other weapon heroes because of this. And those are just small facets of it, but it's enough to make SJW's heads explodes, and I love it. So I was really surprised that it won anything. And of course, it would be Raphtalia who wins Best Girl. It is well deserved. She's a fantastic character. I've not read the manga that it's based on, but definitely in the anime, she is a fantastic character. She overcomes her slave mentality and becomes even better as a character, and she grows over time and becomes this really strong, heroic woman, but in the right way. She's not good at everything. She's not a Mary Sue. She is just an awesome character. It also won for Best Performance by a Voice Actor in English. Billy Kometz is Naofumi. And again, I'm really surprised. It's 2 awards. Now, I said one earlier. I misspoke by accident. I meant to say that one reward when I was talking about Raphtalia. But I think that is fantastic. I'm so glad it won. I'm so glad they didn't cave to the SJWs. I'm glad they actually did the right thing and nominate this and give the award to this anime. That's fantastic. Because, and like I said, I think it should have won way more than it did. I think that it was kind of cheated out of some other awards. There were other animes that won that no one had ever heard of. So I'm really glad. One of the ones that annoyed me kind of the most was they gave the award for Best Protagonist to Senku from Dr. Stone. And I watched Dr. Stone. I watched like the first 15 episodes. I didn't think it was that good. I honestly am not impressed. It's more like, I don't know if anyone who's not a millennial probably doesn't know what I'm talking about, but there was the show on called The Magic School Bus where these kids and their teacher, they had this magic school bus and they could do things like dive into like blood cells, and you could examine them and things like that. And Dr. Stone is kind of like a combination of a MacGyver and the Magic School Bus. So he explains scientific properties and how you can appropriately do them. But I don't know why he won Best Protagonist. He's not that great of a character. He's very arrogant and kind of off-putting at times. Personally, I think for this, I think Goku should have won for Dragon Ball Super, and also I think Naofumi for Rising the Shield Hero, but also there's a ton of other better characters. Levi Ackerman from Attack on Titan, that's a better character. I really don't get why Dr. Stone won this huge one. It doesn't make any sense to me, but anyway, that's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and share this video out. If you're on Facebook, which is author Jacob Airy, follow me, turn on the notifications on Facebook so that way you get notified whenever I release a new video and or podcast. Also find me on Twitter at RealJacobAiry, Instagram, Instagram is at RealJacobAiry. You can also follow my blog, www.jacobairy.blog. Also buy a copy of my fantasy novel. It's on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com. You can download it to read if you're on Rakuten on their Kobo e-reader, and also you can find it at my publisher's website, booklocker.com. Just search the title, Seven Royals, All Good Things. Once again, I apologize for having a sore throat. Hopefully tomorrow it will be better. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on Studio Jake.